Nishmas Rachelea Bas Rav Chaim Tzvi. We're back again.
Hilchot Shabbat.
It's been a very long time.
I missed you.
Same here. Been very busy, but Baruch Hashem.
With good things.
Yes, thank God. And
we're back, I hope, all the way.
We're back on track. All the way. Yes, so we really we gave a number of shiurim on Melacha of Borer, and we have a few things we need to just touch up, some odds and ends to complete that topic. We like to leave no stone unturned.
Right. Not only that, but in a certain sense, we may have let down. Originally, why we did Borer was we got correspondence, and anybody can correspond with us at naale.com or Rav Isaacson at gmail.com if you have any questions, and they asked us specifically about scattered toys.
Okay.
And they said, what do I do on Shabbos? Scatter toys. You got to do Borer. And we did, I think, 5 or 6 shiurim Borer. Never touched on scattered toys.
Right. So let's just do a quick review.
Okay.
Since it's been, I got to refresh my memory.
And
then we'll discuss some of the remaining scenarios.
Fair enough.
Okay. So we discussed when it comes to the Melacha of Borer, you have to satisfy each of 3 requirements.
Right.
You have to take the good from the bad. Ochel mitop soles.
Right.
I should even take a step backwards further. Before you even get to those 3 requirements, you have to satisfy 2 prerequisites.
Right. The problem with Borer, as I recall from what you taught me, is that you're not allowed to, if you have a mixture.
Number 1, you need a mixture.
Right. If you have something that's mixed, you're not allowed to, and the mixture is of 2 things of 2 different
2 species.
Types.
Referred to as 2 minim.
2 species, 2 types, 2 minim.
Right, which is defined as
shame.
Different names.
Right.
Or
they have to have either a different name. What was the second one?
Well, if it's a food, we're talking about different tastes. If it's another object, a different function.
Taste or function.
Different kind of function.
Shame
so we discussed, for example, if you have dark meat and white meat of chicken.
So we said that in our world, people really heavily prefer one or the other. 2 different tastes.
Right. Oatmeal cookies, chocolate chip cookies.
2 different tastes.
Southern fried chicken, barbecue chicken.
Who can even compare?
Wheat bread, white bread.
So there's wheat bread guys and white bread guys.
Golden delicious apples and Macintosh.
I'm violently allergic, but I hear that it's different.
So there you have your basic different tastes or different names, different functionality. That's going to be your definition of what's called 2 minim versus 1 minim.
And it really happens just about every week. These things are jumbled together, and you cannot just willy-nilly separate them for the sake of separating them apart.
That's correct.
You have to, if you want to access one of those things, then perhaps you can. But even there, we have to follow certain criteria, which I recall you mentioned.
Right, so you have 3 basic criteria that we want to satisfy. You have to satisfy each of them.
Okay.
A few exceptions, which we'll get to, but you have to satisfy each of the 3 criteria. Right. Number 1,
yes.
If you have a mixture of good and bad,
yes.
Let's take a step backwards. How do you define good and bad?
Good would be what I want.
Right.
What I desire.
Right.
Bad would be that which I would like to discard.
Good. So even if you have, the classic case is good and bad means you have, let's say, food and you have dirt, stones, pebbles. Right. That's obviously good and bad. But let's say you have raisin bran, and you are a big fan of the raisins, you're not so into the bran.
I have known certain weasels to eat the raisins out of raisin bran.
That's terrible.
Such people should not be roaming around unsupervised.
Indeed. So a person who wants the raisins doesn't want the bran. The bran is certainly food.
But you desire the raisins.
So that's called 2 minim, 2 separate species, and you have to take the good, meaning the desired item, from the non-desired item. That's requirement number 1. Requirement number 2 is you have to do so by hand and not with a specialized instrument.
Yes, I recall we mentioned certain instruments, and we said that even though you may not even think of them as Borer instruments, in fact they were, like the salt shaker, where you have the rice in there to absorb moisture.
Good.
So you're separating the salt from the thing. We also had a tea bag itself,
right? Where
once the tea bag becomes infused with water and tea leaves, you're straining out tea, and of course regular strainers and sieves and separating instruments and what have you.
Slotted spoons?
Slotted spoons, we were saying, you don't want to take out a goulash or a cholent, if you will, and go like this, allow the drip to take place.
Exactly.
So we had issues with that.
Can the pot itself, regular spoon, pot itself?
Yeah, we were talking about going like that, you mean?
Yeah.
When we were talking about that, we were saying, the pot itself is not a separating instrument. That perhaps is not the typical way of separating.
Right, but if you are using it
in that context of a separating instrument,
the Shulchan Aruch even discusses if you used to have wine with dregs in it.
Yeah.
And if you pour off the wine and you'd use the bottle and pour off very slowly at the end so that the wine would leave, but the dregs would cleave to the wall of the bottle, that also would be prohibited.
That's not biyad. That's considered a problem.
Called a cleave. You're using a cleave for that purpose.
Problematic.
What about a regular spoon? Or a fork? You want to take out a piece of meat from the cholent. You want the meat. You're going to eat it right now, but you're using a regular fork to do so.
No, the fork